Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in again. And this video is about the coilover installation portion of lowering the BMW E92 Xdrive. So I had a couple of issues, or not really issues, but challenges, I guess, with getting this car down and lowering it from stock, and that's what this is going to go into more in detail. I did the video before where it just shows you the overview of what happened, and you can go and see that, and there's also a video on the more extensive part of the Aircup installation, but this video will just go over the coilover installation in more detail. So what we're going to be going with are the BC Racing BR Extreme Lows, and it's a divorced rear coilover system, so that's why it's not actually a coilover in the rear, but a coil and also the separate shock. I do like these BC Racing systems. I've had a few of these in the past, and I really am surprised with the quality for the price, so we're going to see how this goes. But what we're going to add are these Aircups by Stanceparts. I spent quite a bit of time talking to Martine from Stanceparts. They're from the Netherlands, and they had a nice setup where they go right onto this divorced rear coil system. A lot of the Aircups I've seen were made for just the straight coilovers, so they go on something like this, but the divorce system needs a special cup so that it could fit just on that without the stem for the shock absorber. And then plus, since they had a lot of experience, he recommended the size difference to make the rear adjust correctly, and so we'll see how that goes. So that's why this is the spring that comes with the rears for the BMW E92, and this is the spring we're replacing it with, which is 20 millimeters shorter, but the similar spring rate. It came with 200s, and we're going to use a little bit softer one. There are a lot of options that you can buy from Stanceparts, or BC Racing, or you could even go to other manufacturers that have a lot of different coils. These are standard 62 millimeter by whatever length that you want and rate that you want. This car, hopefully, if we intend to lower it quite a bit. The Xdrive, we're going to do a measurement, but you can see there's quite a bit of space between the tire and the fender. These are the stock wheels and tires that are on it now. We have on order some different wheels and tires for this vehicle, but we want to be able to get down a little bit lower just for appearance purposes, but also for handling purposes. This should give it a little bit better handling, mainly because not the spring rate as much as the shock absorber on this, I think, is going to be a lot better than the factory shocks on here have 170,000 miles, and it still feels pretty good, but probably time to replace them. They're not worn out yet, but kind of getting close. In the rears, you have a lot of space here also, so we want to cover that up a little bit, just for appearance wise, but mainly we want to be able to improve the handling and then also make it able to drive around on the streets on a daily basis, going over speed bumps or entrances to different places. But that's it for the parts. So with that, we'll just get started. So the first thing we need to do, because I always forget to do this, because you get all excited you want to get this all done and you forget to measure, like, so what did we do? So we're going to go ahead and measure the height of the vehicle, because when we go to set it, we need to know how much we're changing it. And we're just doing a simple measurement from the ground to the inner fender, and it's almost 26.5 inches. So I would say it's right around 26.5. I'm going to write that down. Right at 25.5 inches for the rear. So what we're going to do now is take apart the front end and get that strut out so that we can change it for the coilover. Oh, I forgot to mention too that one of the nice things about these BCs also is they come with these camber plates, so you can add some adjustment to the suspension. Now we're going to go ahead and connect up the knuckle. It's nice because the knuckle has all of the steering and A-arms and things like that, so usually the alignment doesn't get off too much. You still want to check the alignment before you just drive away, because so now we're going to start taking the back apart, and need to get to that bolt for the upper shock tower, and we'll do that to both sides. Then we'll remove the lower shock bolt, and then also the suspension lower control arm, actually spring perch, not sure what you call it. Set up something on there so that it doesn't spring out. So here is the rear suspension setup, and what comes with the kit is this replacement spring and adjuster for the height, and then I actually got this other spring which is a little bit softer and a little, I think 20 millimeters shorter. Not sure if I'm going to use it, but might get it too low, because I don't really want to lower it that much, but we do have that option. And then what happens is this part, which is the cup, will go over this, and then this goes on top. You can see as just before you even put it all together, it's a few inches shorter, but that's not under load. And then on the shock absorber, we'll need to transfer this bottom mount bushing and the top mount bushing, which go in between here, just so it's cushions in the body. But it's pretty straightforward. You won't use this cup anymore, and I think you don't need this anymore either. Here's the shock adjuster in the neutral position. So here's the other side with the adjuster extension installed. Go ahead and take some measurements here. So it's only 26 front. In the back. So this is what had happened. There was a 26, or the front end was measured at 26 inches after putting the spring setup in, and then the rear was at 24 inches. And so that was like about a half an inch drop in the front and 1.5 inches in the rear. And I took the car out to drive it, and I'll show you guys how that turned out. And I was actually pretty happy about the improvement in the performance, because apparently I think the shocks were pretty worn out. But you might be wondering, why do I have the suspension out? And it's because I think it's mainly that the vehicle is just fine the way it is for like driving around, and there's it really didn't change enough from stock that I really need this Aircup to lift it up, because you could drive it around just fine and go over bumps and everything. But one of the reasons why we're putting this suspension in is just to lower it, and then every once in a while I think my son wanted to go to like a car event or something like that and be able to make it super low, and that's fine. Car, I think, does look better when it's lowered. It's mainly just an appearance thing, not a performance thing. Performing wise, it works really well with this springs and shock setup that is in there. And eventually we are waiting on some wheels and tires that we're going to be changing on this to give it a different appearance, and also a little bit wider tire also. One of the things with this type of suspension, and I had actually set this up to the maximum amount that you could lower this car with this setup. And so you can see, this is actually, I just took this out of the vehicle, I haven't done anything, but it's right up against, I mean, just enough so I can loosen this up to change the amount of height adjustment on this strut. So I started to take this apart, and I just wanted to show you what this looks like. And we were thinking we'd get like quite a bit of adjustment out of it, but one of the things I didn't anticipate is, like, if you look at this top seat, looks really thick, but actually what it is, it's not really much thicker, but it repositions the this is a stock spring, so that it actually sits up higher in the on the strut, so that you can move this up pretty high. But because of the way that this cup sits on, or I mean the spring perch sits on top of the cup, you see that you actually take up that much space, which is about 30 millimeters, that you're actually making this spring longer. And then on top of that, you have your cup, which is about 30 millimeters also thickness. So it's almost 60 millimeters that you're taking up as space, that if you kind of look at this, you're moving the spring down, which moves the amount of adjustment that you have down. So And this spring, like I had shown before, I don't know if you can see this or read this, but the way that they put, at least BC Racing puts their spring sizes, this is the internal diameter at 62 millimeters. This is the relaxed length, which is 150 millimeters. And this is the spring rate, which is 6 kilograms per millimeter. And the stock, or the setup that came with this spring, is a conical spring. It's the bottom end is 62 millimeters, 150 length, and 6 kilograms. So that's why I had put in this spring to replace it, so I can use it with the cup. I also at the same time had bought this spring, which is a little bit heavier, just because I wanted to have a spring that I can change it with. I also got this spring so that I could lower it some more, and just in case ran into this situation, which I did run into. And this is a 130 length, which is 20 millimeters shorter than the 150. And after going through this, I actually was just curious, and I don't recommend you do this, but I'm just doing this just so I can see. But I wanted to actually see, like, if you really could lower it quite a bit. And I don't know if this is going to work, but this is I couldn't find the exact measurements that you need to actually do this, but Swift actually sells like 2.5 inch coilover springs, and this is a 350 pound per inch spring, which is a little bit stiffer than a 150, or excuse me, the 6 kilogram. And this is a 4 inch spring, and don't even know if it's going to actually fit in there for lengthwise. But this is actually, if you measure it out, 65 millimeters, and it's so it's 2 millimeters. There's like a millimeter of slop in between, so I might have to create a spacer or of something so I can make sure it stays centered securely. But I think I'm going to try this just out of curiosity to see how low we could get this car, and learn some things. But I think I'm going to end up using this spring. Also, I forgot to mention that I'm going to switch this top mount with this, which is the standard 62 millimeter, mainly because it's not going to actually, even though it looks like it's going to change its height, it's not going to change the height, but what it does is it moves the surface where we're going to be putting support on the cup out a little further. I just feel like it'd be a little better if it's centered out a little further for support, versus with this it's just it's a little bit in the center, and it's we'll just keep it out there. But I have these, so I'm gonna move it out here so that it's a little bit out further on the cup. So just to here's the assembled strut. So this is the adjustment from the height, and so we're gonna get almost like 2 more inches of drop at that point, which I don't know what it translates out to the actual tire, but or the body, but that gives us quite a bit more. And there looks like there's enough movement in the compressibility of the shock here in the strut itself. So we'll see how this works.
good. Looks low.
So yeah, now it's at 24.25 in the front. So lowered the rear just a little bit, and now it's about 23 7/8. Okay, we're gonna take a short spin to see how everything is working, and see how, if it's too short, if it's gonna bottom out, maybe if it's too rough, or but it actually seems just like the 6 kilogram springs. I can't really tell too much of a difference. Although we haven't really hit some really bouncy roads yet, but it is a lot firmer than stock, and I think that has more to do with the shock absorber rebound and the rates that you have adjusted. I have it adjusted on its softest setting just to start out with. When I originally turned it on, it was actually at its midpoint setting, and it seemed like a little bit too stiff. But I can tell you right now that with these, it actually feels softer than with the other coilovers. I don't know if the rating that I had miscalculated or something, but it's not too bad. So I can stiffen up the shocks a little bit, try to go over some bumpy areas here, see what it's like. There's a bump. Good. I have adjusted almost to the lowest that I could get it. I could probably go down another ½ inch or more, but that's quite a bit of a change, at least to me, from stock. So my son had already looked at it and met his appearance approval, meaning that it's got the correct look for him that he can live with. And it's not so low that it actually looks like you can get through our driveway, but we're going over some bumps right now, and it feels actually very acceptable. Something I can definitely live with. I've driven a lot of race cars, and we drove on the street, and it's definitely not that, and that's not what we were after. But this is definitely stiffer than stock, but nothing I think that I can live with on a long trip. Hitting some bumps. Seems all good.